Facebook advertising fixes. This is the first time I've ever run this webinar. During the past year, multiple years, I've run a ton of free webinars. And the last one I did was on like a rolling monthly basis. And I decided to start from scratch. And we got a completely new one, Facebook advertising fixes. So thanks for joining me on this one today. So if you're not familiar with me, you don't know me, I haven't been exposed to my stuff that much before. Real quick, this is me, this is my family, this is what it's all about for me. This is my inspiration. It's not about being rich and powerful and famous and all that kind of stuff. I started my business in hopes that I could create the flexibility to spend more time with these guys. Father of 3, I'm a baseball coach too, and that takes up a lot of my time. So I like starting with this. I've been laid off twice. Stuff happens. Some people say stuff happens for a reason. I'll just say that I don't regret that one bit. Last time was over 8 years ago. And I've been using Facebook since it was rolled out to the old folks back in 2007. I was working for the National Basketball Association at the time, and I was in charge of kind of overseeing a lot of that. And I started up the first official NBA, National Basketball Association Facebook group, and I was the first admin before there were pages. That's how old I am. I started johnloomer.com in 2011, so it's been 8 years now that I started it, and since that second layoff. So it's been quite the ride along the way. I've been focused on advanced Facebook ads for much of that time. Been using Facebook ads since before I started my business. So I've been doing this stuff for a little while. You can find me on Twitter at John Loomer, and of course on Facebook at facebook.com/JohnLoomerDigital. So how's this going to work? It'll be 60 or so minutes for the webinar itself. Now that we're getting started, we'll start with the presentation. We will have time for Q&A at the end. So I know this is a little different than GoToWebinar, so it seems like it could be a little noisy, but feel free to. I think I made it so it's private questions, so you're not chatting with each other so much, so that can decrease the noise a little bit. So if no one's responding to you, that's why. My apologies. But if you've got specific questions about what we're talking about, drop them in there. I'll get to as many as I can at the end. There will be a replay. That's always a question. I say within 24 hours it'll be ready for you, but really it should be 2 or 3. A link with the login credentials will be emailed to you. You might already have a link. I'm not sure if we sent that earlier as well. And the video, audio, slides, relevant links, all that stuff is going to be available to you at powerhittersclub.com. That's our membership site that we create for this. So what are we going to talk about today? Oh, man. So we're going to talk about the 20 factors. All right, it's the 20 factors that impact whether or not your ads work. And I think it's something that a lot of, especially new advertisers and even intermediate advertisers, have a tough time grasping. They're like, they've got this campaign, it's not running, or giving them the results they want. And they're like, what's the one thing I need to do to fix it? And the truth is, you got 20 things. So we're going to talk about the specific ways that you can impact those factors, as well as some recommended general steps for getting those results as well. And then at the end, we'll have that Q&A. So regarding the 20 factors, I get this question all the time. And it's kind of one of my least favorite questions because it makes some assumptions about the way Facebook ads function in the first place. It's, okay, why didn't my ad work? And or how do I fix my ads so they perform better? And they expect this simple answer. So there must be this one thing I need to do that I'm not doing. So these ultimately are impossible questions to answer completely. There isn't one template that will always work. And I know that part of the reason people believe that is that they see a lot of these get-rich-quick, these template blueprint people that said follow these step-by-step and make these campaigns that are always going to work for you. It just does not work that way. Ultimately, there are 20 primary factors, and I'm sure there are others as well, that are going to impact the performance of your ads. So the issue, though, is that it's not that they're just these 20 factors and you can kind of tick them all off and fix them all. You have varying degrees of control over them. And you also kind of look at it as a sliding scale. So consider, I mean, this isn't the way Facebook necessarily looks at it, but Facebook's looking at each of these, let's assume Facebook's looking at each of these things and you're rated on each one. You're not going to get a perfect score on all 20 factors, especially the ones you can't control. The better you manage those factors, though, ultimately, the better your ads are going to perform. So when we go through these 20 factors, in each step along the way, we're going to talk about how that factor impacts your results. And then we're going to talk about how you should approach those factors. So that could mean fixing something that's not working, or just generally how you should approach that to try to get the most out of it. So the first factor that impacts the success or lack thereof of your ads is copy. So when we talk about copy, we're talking about the text. So it could be the primary text. We could talk about the headline, talk about the link description. But this is where you're entering words that appear with your ad to hopefully convince people to perform the action that you want them to take. So how does copy impact the success of your ads? It can have a drastic impact, actually, on your results. A lot of this is about psychology. It's using the right words in the right way to get someone to want to act. Man, I'm not going to say it's mind control or anything like that, but it's psychology. If you just throw out a bunch of words, just kind of explaining what something is, it usually doesn't inspire them to do anything. I think the big confusion comes around copy is like there's a specific template you need to follow. That short copy is more likely to work than long copy is something I've often heard. Or that you should use professional language or casual language. These are things you should ask yourself. I mean, these are things that are going to impact the performance of your ads. Some people say you should use emojis. Is that something you should do? I think if you've looked at any of my ads, you will never find a single emoji. That's part of my style, though. Typos will drive you crazy. They've driven me crazy. That is absolutely going to negatively impact the performance of your ads if you've got a typo, misspelling, bad grammar. Some people like to use all caps and are yelling at your audience. A lot of people probably aren't going to like that. Also, the question is, how clear is your call to action? So when someone sees your ad, like, oh, that's nice, and they keep scrolling? Or is it they're going to inspire them to do something? So ultimately, whether it's a call to action or otherwise, does your ad inspire, your ad copy, as we're focusing on right now, inspire some sort of response? So how should we approach copy? I mean, so these are all the questions and all the ways that copy impacts your results. But now let's talk about how we approach that. So I want you to understand this. It's really, really important because especially as newer advertisers, those who are struggling to find success, you're going to listen to a lot of people who are talking really loudly about how you need to follow this specific strategy or whatever. There's not a one-size-fits-all for length of your copy, so whether it's short or long. Don't listen to any of that stuff. The truth is, it needs to be easily consumed, right? So you could have long copy, but I highly recommend short blocks of that copy for readability. I kind of look at it similarly to blog posts too, because if you think of it this way, if you got a blog post that's 1,000, 2,000 words and it's one paragraph, that's exhausting, right? You're not going to get through a few sentences. Similar to an ad and an ad copy, if you got a whole bunch of copy on one big block, that's exhausting. But if you break it up by a couple lines, every couple lines you break it up, it's easier to consume. Whether it's long or short, use the amount of copy that's needed to tell your story. And honestly, the amount of copy you use a lot of times depends on who it is you're reaching. Who is going to be seeing your ad? Do they need a thorough explanation? Are you remarketing to someone who went to a product page and didn't buy? So they don't need to be reintroduced to the product. They just might need a quick call to action, like, hey, there's a sale. I want to make sure you know about it. That's it. They don't need any more explanation. So the amount of copy you use is how much you need to tell the story. Also determine how it is your audience talks. So in terms of language, and is it casual, is it professional, whatever. Do they care whether you have typos or not? Do they care whether you use emojis? Are they going to look down upon that? So these are things you got to think about when you communicate with them and how they consume information. Always proofread. Look, I'll admit I make that mistake too. I'll forget. I just assume it's good. Hit publish, and then you wonder why your ad's not working. It's because you look like an idiot. And always have a clear call to action, preferably near the top, or at least prior to if someone has to expand to read all the copy. You really don't want that buried at the bottom, right? So, and it doesn't have to be the strongest call to action, but something that inspires them to click and perform whatever action it is you want them to perform. And then ultimately, like, how do you find the best copy? Because since we should always jump into this not knowing whether this is the best copy, right? As we type it out, like, oh yeah, I'm 100% sure that's going to work. I don't know. You always want to split test. Test to find what's going to work best for you. So actually, I just published this blog post last night. You might want to check it out. So if you just go to johnloomer.com, it's there. There's this new feature called multiple text options. And I'm still testing it right now, but this is one way, like if you are unsure about the copy you want to use, you can enter in multiple primary text options, and Facebook will mix and match and find what works best for you, or is supposed to work best for the intended audience. So that's the way it's supposed to work, and that is absolutely one way you can find the copy that works best. All right, so that takes us to number 2 out of 20, creative. So when we talk about creative, we're really talking about images, and sometimes we can throw videos in that as well. But how does creative impact the performance of your ads? A bad image is going to fail to grab attention. That's important when someone's scrolling through the news feed. On the flip side, a good image is something that's going to grab someone's attention and more likely to lead to results. So you could have a good ad otherwise, but if it doesn't grab someone's attention so they consume it, and they're not going to perform that action you want them to perform. That said, if you have a good image that grabs their attention, if you've got good copy to go along with it and everything else is good, they're more likely to perform that action that you want. And I'm going to get to most of these questions at the very end. But while I see Claire's question, she asked, is it the multiple text options, is that similar to dynamic creative? It's absolutely similar. For whatever reason, it's not the same thing. And I initially thought that was like a streamlined version of dynamic creative. It's not. They are different. Check out the blog post that I just wrote last night on that. But so ultimately the question becomes, what is a quote unquote good image? And really the only way to define that is how your audience responds. Because you might hear, okay, we got to use faces. Well, should you use multiple faces? Just a single face? Who should we use? Should we use someone who represents who this person is based on age and gender? Or maybe they would prefer to see someone younger, or maybe someone of the opposite gender. So there's no one size fits all there. But also it's a matter of using colors. So especially if you're going to use something that's not a photo, it's just a graphic. Should you use bright colors? Should you use dark colors? Should you use monochrome, multiple colors? Well, what should you use there? And should it be professionally produced where you send it to a designer or you got a professional photographer? Or could it be user-generated? And if you use video, should it be long video or should it be short video? These are all things that could impact performance of your ads. So how should we approach this? So as with copy, once again, there's not a specific creative that's going to work for you every single time, okay? Part of this, I know for some people it's like that's overwhelming, like, oh, all the options. The other is, I think it takes the pressure off feeling like there's this magic golden ticket way of doing things that every way that you've got to figure it out. It's just not that way. Make sure it's a clear image, though. with high quality. I'm not going to say 100% of the time that's going to work better than lower quality, but more often than not, if you look professional without being too staged, that'll be good. Also, as we know, Facebook has kind of loosened the strings a little bit on the text rule. It's not so much the 20% text rule anymore. It's just basically like Facebook says if you have too much text in your image, it could hamper distribution. So keep that in mind when you create your images. And also make sure that you use proper dimensions. In particular, for different placements, your ad's going to look different. So use what is optimal. We'll talk about that a little bit here in a second. Yeah, so consider different dimensions based on those placements. And you can actually customize your creative by placement now. And also, if you're using video, make sure you can get the message across without sound. That's really important as well. And what I mean by that is it doesn't mean that you shouldn't use sound at all. Just know that something like 85% of people will watch it without sound. So if you can grab their attention without sound, great. If you just got a person standing there talking, the talking head, and there's no text streaming or anything, like, what am I watching? Like, no one's going to pay attention to that. So in terms of image dimensions, Facebook's pretty good about highlighting what's ideal these days. So yes, high resolution image, minimum 500 pixels. They don't even have a maximum resolution. Of course, they're going to scale and crop and all that kind of stuff. Use JPEG or PNGs. They recommend Square, and that's going to fit for many of the placements. Full screen vertical for stories placements. So at 9 to 16 aspect ratio. And maximize ad delivery using an image that contains little or no overlaid text. And of course, the videos. One of the main reasons for the 15 seconds or less is that at that point it'll appear in all placements, which allow for video. Because if it's too long, it's not going to appear in certain placements. That said, that doesn't mean you can't create an effective Facebook video ad that's longer than 15 seconds. Facebook has actually said recently that longer videos work better. Strange, right? Because they don't really want you to use that in certain placements. But anyway, you have various aspect ratios as well for the videos, but that's going to change by placement as well. So keep all these things in mind when you're creating your videos. But the nice thing these days, back in the day, you'd have to create a whole different ad based on the placement if you wanted to change what the image looked like. And but these days it's a little bit easier. So you've got this drop down to select a placement to customize, and you can customize that placement. Not only the image, it could be a video, but you could also customize the text within that placement. So it's really, really useful. Factor number 3, ad format. So we talk about ad format, things like this. You're using the carousel, single image or video, the collection ad format, instant experience. I'd also throw lead ad forms in there as well. I will tell you, I just spotted this today. I think it's pretty new. I don't know if you have it. You see that at the very top? Use dynamic formats and ad creative. I just spotted it, so I haven't used it yet. But it says when you use a catalog, will show different formats and create to different people based on what they're most likely to respond to. So know that's there too. But it seems to be only when you're using a catalog. But that seems like a potentially powerful option. So how does ad format impact success, failure of your ads? I mean, these are all the questions you got to ask yourself. Should you use a link? Meaning sharing a link that has the link preview, description, all that kind of stuff in it? Or should you use a text post only? I remember back in the day, it was a funny time in Facebook ads world and marketing world, that there was this feeling that if you shared a link that brought in the link description and thumbnail and all that stuff, you're going to get less reach. So that you need to instead do a text-only post. And man, did that make the news feed ugly for a while. That's just an example of how marketers can ruin things. But then that also, people went on to just doing an image and then maybe even just pasting in the link without pulling it in automatically. Should you use a video? Should you post a collection? Should you use an instant experience? Should you post a carousel? Should you use a lead ad form? I'd even ask, should you use dynamic ads? So how should you approach format? It shouldn't be your primary concern. I think this was the biggest issue we had from advertisers or marketers for the longest time. They were told that text posts would get the most reach, or photo posts would get the most reach, or video posts would get the most engagement. And I've got to find a way to get my message across using that format. Don't look at it that way. The format should not be your primary concern. Don't think I need a video to do this. Instead, think I need an ad that does this, that gets this type of message across. And then ask yourself, what is the best format to help accomplish that goal? So think of it like this. It can be really, really simplified, right? If you want to drive traffic, use a typical link share post. If you want to just get engagement, driving people away from Facebook with a link might not be the way to go. Maybe just using a video post. Or an image post. And if you just want someone to watch something to inform them, to educate them, whatever, videos are really good for that. And if you've got maybe a more complex story that you want to tell, a multi-format story, instant experience can be powerful, where you can layer in images and video and text and all kinds of stuff. Or if you want to give people options, use carousel and collections. So when you think about it, video can be really powerful. It's good at getting people to watch something. It's good at getting engagement. It's good at grabbing attention. Oftentimes it's not good at call to action, at sending people away from Facebook to convert. So this doesn't mean this is 100% all the time, but don't expect a video to convert. Don't expect a link to provide good engagement. That was one of the downfalls apparently of links for the longest time. Marketers didn't want to share the typical link because they didn't get engagement or reach or whatever. Well, I don't care if you don't comment on it. I just want you to click that link to go to my website. Each format has one primary purpose that you're trying to leverage. So just keep that in mind. Before I move on to targeting, just want to verify that everything is still okay. I had one comment in here from Francisco that he's still not able to connect. So I just wanted to confirm before I keep moving. Okay, Michelle said yes. Hi, Michelle. So I think we're good to go. All right, I was a little scared. All right, so targeting, number 4. And I could probably even put this at number 1, to be honest with you. Otherwise, there's really no reason for the order of these. So targeting, we're talking about when we create an ad. And this is an ads manager, by the way. This is beyond the boost. You enter your audience. So it could be your custom audiences, lookalike audiences, the locations, age, gender, languages, detailed targeting, which would be the interests and behaviors, things like that. All right, so how does targeting impact the performance of your ads? So honestly, I see this as possibly the most important factor related to the success of your advertising. You could have the best ad in the world, but if it's targeted at the wrong people, it's not going to work, right? So if you've got something, basically if you've got an ad with a great product that's created for someone who's a completely different type, let's say you've crafted something that's for seniors or for teenagers, right? Great product. But if you send it to me, I don't have a need for whatever it is you're trying to sell. So that targeting is really, really important. And I think this is where people forget, right? Targeting is not magic. Facebook can't force people to take certain actions. And I think oftentimes people kind of blame Facebook for their targeting or things like that because, this didn't work. Well, these aren't robots on the other end. Also understand it's not only whom you target, but when. And what do I mean by that? So I look at it as my potential audience when I'm throwing an ad out there. We've got people who have never heard of me before, and will have no interest in whatever I have to offer. There are people who have never heard of me before, but won't have any interest in buying something now, but they may later. We have people who know who I am, who may be interested in buying. And we have people who are super hot, ready to jump on anything I do right now. Okay? So they're different groups. So you could target a great audience, but if you send, it's all about, meshing your message with the right audience though too. So there's a time for cold audiences, warm audiences, hot audiences. It's just a matter of how you message each of those people. So what approach should you take with targeting? It's different for everybody too. But the cold audiences for me really best for top of the funnel. So what I mean by that is top of the funnel is like engaging in something, not necessarily buying anything today. So find the most effective interest audiences, and test out lookalike audiences, and don't just assume, okay, I'm trying to get people to register for something, so I'll do a lookalike audience off of registration for that thing. That would be logical. Lookalike audiences always don't work logically, so test out different lookalike audiences to see what works best. But also be careful, because when you target cold audiences and you chase things, or you overvalue things like likes and engagement and clicks and leads, especially in cheap countries, you might not realize what you're actually getting. Okay? They may not be as valuable as you think. So it's good to get engagement and drive traffic and build your leads, all that stuff. But let's also make sure that this is an ideal audience for us. Quality matters, absolutely. So target cold audiences for the light actions. So things like clicks and views and engagement and awareness, because you want to expose them to what you're all about, to get them to trust you, and it's a long-term view here. Like in a lot of cases, they might not buy today, but they'll buy a month from now, a year from now, whatever it be. It's called playing a long game. Now with warm and hot audiences, keep in mind that's going to be the smallest audience too. So, assuming you're not a super well-known brand, right? So these are the people who are most likely to act and convert right now. Maybe they just visited your website, they engaged with your Facebook page, they're aware of your business, they're most active with your brand, they trust you, they performed actions. I missed a word there. That make them likely to convert. And let's focus on these people for leads and for sales. So there are various types of warm audiences. Things like your data file custom audience, right? So that means your email list. The page engagement custom audiences. So those are the people who have engaged with your page in any way, engaged with the post, messaged your page, that kind of thing. Watched a video. Nope, there we go. Watched videos, engaged with posts, message your page, and then website custom audiences as well. And there are a whole bunch of different types of website custom audiences, which takes us here very nicely. Website traffic, number 5. So how does website traffic impact the success of your ads? And to be very clear, this is a really important, spoke to the marketing wheel for me. I had created an offer, and then of course everything wasn't working, so it went away. But I have a training that's coming up on this in a couple of days. So high traffic websites are at a huge advantage when it comes to ads that work. And there's a reason for that. Because if you get traffic, you get a lot of traffic, that means you have large, warm audiences. So people who know who you are, who are consistently coming to your site, who trust you, who know what you're all about. As a result, large, warm audiences means you get cheaper reach, cheaper clicks, cheaper actions, and quality actions. Low traffic websites rely only on cold audiences, or majority cold audiences. Cold audiences do not consistently perform, at least not in terms of conversions and sales and the stuff that's most valuable. Doesn't mean they won't ever perform, don't get me wrong. The problem is you might not have traffic right now, or you might not have significant traffic that you can leverage right now. So what's our approach to website traffic? Big part of my strategy is driving traffic to my website. So whether it's building my email list, allowing people to subscribe and emailing them when I've got a new blog post, writing blog posts on a regular basis, I run ads only for the purpose of driving traffic to my website at times. At all times, basically. That doesn't mean I don't also run ads for, obviously, registrations like this and for purchases. But a big one for me is driving traffic. So don't neglect that. Now, this isn't something that's going to happen overnight. You got to commit to creating high-quality website content. And then with content that serves and helps and educates, it just can't just be, my product is awesome, buy my stuff. That's not good content. Higher traffic means you're going to gain a greater amount of trust and expertise. Higher traffic is going to mean, especially when people come to your website and they can subscribe, you're going to end up with a larger email list. Higher traffic means more indirect conversions. So I talked about this on a recent blog post as well. I might not have the purpose of sending you to my website to buy something. I might just be trying to get you to read a blog post. But when you're there, that may have inspired you to sign up for something. And if I look back at my ads, I get a lot of that, actually. A lot of these indirect conversions, which are pretty great. Well, did I just skip something? Nope, there we go. So back to what I was talking about. In case you're wondering, in case you're curious, you want to know more about this approach, this strategy with driving traffic, I do have a training 2 days from now on Thursday called Strategic Traffic Masterclass. If you have any questions about it, feel free to ask. You can email us as well. But just go to johnloomer.com/traffic to learn more about that. All right, so when we talk about website traffic, that leads us here with Facebook, the Facebook Pixel and events, which is absolutely critical to your success on ads. So I hope you've added the Pixel to whatever website you're managing, driving traffic to, drive sales, whatever it be, because without it, you're at a huge disadvantage. So this is the process for setting up the Pixel. So how does this impact your ad success? Well, first of all, it's a snippet of code that you add to your website that's unique to your ad account. It's for tracking. So when I say tracking, so Facebook then knows how many people visited the site that saw your ad or otherwise, how many people converted, how many people performed a certain action. It's also for optimization. So once they know that information, they want to help you reach more people who are likely to perform that action again. It's also for audience creation. So now you can create audiences of everyone who visited your site, or people who visited specific pages, or everyone who purchased, or everyone who registered, or there's so many things you can do. So the failure to utilize that, utilize the Facebook Pixel and events means you're unable to measure the conversions from your ads. I don't even know what people are doing if they're not using the Pixel and they're trying to sell something, and how they measure that. You're also unable to optimize for conversion, which is not going to help at all. And you're also unable to build website custom audiences, which can be so valuable. Even if you don't have a big, high-trafficked website, let's remarket to those people who abandon a shopping cart, right? Let's get them back in. Don't just assume they'll never come back now. It means you're unable to target your warmest audiences. And just installing the Pixel code itself, that's not enough. You've got to use the events, you've got to use the parameters and things like that too. So what do we got to do? We got to make sure the Pixel is properly installed, first of all. We got to add all the relevant events, so things like purchase and lead and registration, and there's a whole bunch more. You can do custom events too. Also add all relevant parameters, so when someone buys something or views a product landing page or registers something, so we know what it was. and how much they spent as well. And then let's make sure you create website custom audiences based on that traffic so we can use it and remarket to your website visitors. But this is also how you can end up running dynamic ads for your product catalog. So let's say you're an e-commerce site and you want to remarket to people who have visited specific product landing pages or have bought certain things or whatever. And the Facebook pixel and events is what makes all that happen. So a lot of people don't realize the power of, if you've got the pixel, you've got events set up, the type of website custom audiences you can create. I mean, here's an example. I can create an audience of everyone who's purchased on my website over the last 30 days and spent in aggregate, so it could be multiple purchases, more than $100. That could be one audience. That would be valuable stuff. All right, let's go to number 7. Website performance. We're going to stay in that website discussion for now. So how does website performance impact your ads? It's a big deal. Like, this is often the point that people miss, and they show me their ads and like, why aren't these working? Like, well, they look like great ads, so yeah, I'm not sure. Well, maybe it's the website performance. It's like, what happens when they click on that ad? So imagine, if you will, the best possible ad that's possible, right? Let's see how many times we can say possible. That inspires action, the specific action you want. Maybe you're targeting the ideal audience. It's gonna work. People click that ad at a significantly high rate, but the website crashes. It fails to load, or it loads slowly, or it's outdated, or it's just really poorly constructed. You're losing conversions, and it's not due to the ads. So this is often, you'll be able to detect this sometimes if you have a really high click rate. Your ads are really successful at that. Be like, why aren't we getting people to convert? That's one of the reasons why. So your website, unfortunately, sucks. So what do we do? Honestly, it depends, right? It depends on your role and how much you can impact this. But it's possible there's nothing you can do about it, and you just got to deal with it, whether it be a client or whatever. But if you've got someone you can at least complain to, stress how a bad website impacts your performance and how you're graded and you're measured. And also outline the poor conversion rates and the load speeds that are impacting what's happening. So say, hey, my ad's doing everything it needs to do. People are clicking on it. They come to the site, they're not converting. This is why. So if the site is just a bad experience and you know that is impacting your performance, I strongly advise leaning on instant experience ads and Facebook lead forms, which keep people in Facebook instead. I mean, that's a good Band-Aid in the meantime. All right, so we'll stay on the topic of websites. And number 8, landing page. It's a little bit different, right? It's talking about website performance when we talk about the landing page. So I'm not going to say that my landing page is the greatest, but here's my landing page. It's nice and concise and easy to understand and well constructed, well designed, I hope. Right? And there were over 2,000 people who registered for this, so that was pretty cool. So how does a landing page impact your performance? The question needs to be asked. Do you follow through? Does the landing page follow through on your ad's promise? It's a big one that people often forget. You have an ad that works great. You say, go here to do this, and you go to the landing page, and it's completely different. If there's that disconnect, that could be a big problem. Is your landing page clear and concise? Do they know what they need to do when they get there? Do they know what it is they're signing up for? Does your landing page follow Facebook terms? So there are actually specific terms Facebook has related to the landing page. Does it have a clear call to action? Do they know what they're supposed to do when they get there? And this is kind of one of those secrets that most marketers realize. The more information you ask for, the less likely someone is to convert. And I know sometimes you have a situation where you have a client who has like this long list of things that they need to provide: first name, last name, phone number, address, how much money they make, or all this stuff. Every time you add a new item that you're requesting, it becomes less likely that they're going to follow through. And some of that's good for quality, but you have to ask yourself how much of that is important. End of the day, landing page, things you got to think about is how easy or hard is that process to convert, right? Kind of look at it with unbiased eyes. So how should we approach this? Keep your landing page clean and concise. Keep that branding and messaging consistent with the ad, right? So if you use a certain image in the ad, make sure you've got a similar image on the landing page so that is consistent. Also, make sure the landing page follows through on your ad's promise. Try to go through that flow. Look at what you're messaging, how you get them to click on the ad. What is it you promised them? You come to the landing page. How are you following through on that? Also, consider the quality and quantity balance regarding how much info you're requesting and what info is absolutely required. Because I know sometimes people are like, oh, my salesperson has to have this. Well, what if you just have first name and email address to at least get them into the system? And then from there, see if they respond to that email you get sent out to them. It's like, okay, I need this additional information so we could talk, right? So what information is actually necessary? Also, don't use pop-ups on your landing page. I found that there seems to be a separation between using pop-ups in general on your website and using pop-ups on a landing page where there's no way to get out of it. Okay, so a landing page meaning this is something that doesn't have external links to get out of in the first place. Also, avoid language that violates Facebook terms. So things like they're making guarantees about making money. Like they hate that stuff. Facebook does. Or it could even be some guarantees about before and after, fitness stuff, health, weight loss, things like that. So be really careful. Like you could have an ad that follows through on all of Facebook's policies, but if your landing page doesn't, that could be an issue. That takes us to number 9, your email list. So what impact does your email list make on the success of your ads? So people on your email list have already shown commitment or the willingness to learn more about you and what you're all about. Because understand, an email address, that has value. Like I don't like to give my email address to anybody. So I appreciate the fact that you all provide your email address to sign up for this. Now these people are often ignored regarding ads because it's like, well, they're already on my list. So I don't need to go after them. Well, that's not really true. The other problem is advertisers do very little to build their email list. Like all they care about is getting that sale. But once again, not everyone is ready to buy now. If you add them to your email list because they're not ready now, but they might one day, using your email could be really effective. I've also found that a lot of times I might be emailing the same people that I'm reaching with ads and about a similar thing, and they may not sign up from my email, but they read it. Then they see the ad and they act on the ad. Or vice versa. They saw the ad, they didn't act on it. Then I sent them an email like, oh yeah, I remember seeing that. It makes them both work better. So what's our approach to the email list? You should always have a list building campaign running. And honestly, look, before this webinar, there wasn't I didn't think I have a free webinar dating back to like April. And that's a big deal. That was a big missed opportunity. Well, I always had some basic list building going on. There are 2,000 people who registered for this. That's huge. And it's important that you always have something like this going on, building your email list. Also target those who are on your list to get the sale. Because these people, by joining your email list, are close. If they haven't bought something already, they're likely to buy. Then run ads to complement the email campaign messaging. So don't ignore those people when you're running ads too. All right, that takes us to number 10, competition. So what impact does competition have on the success of your ads? So Facebook ads, you have to understand, are built on an auction format. Okay, so I think we all kind of understand how an auction works. We have to bid against other people. So there are multiple advertisers who are competing to reach the same people. The higher the competition, the higher the cost. I mean, think about it. If you're at an auction and you've got multiple people who all want to buy that same refrigerator, I don't know, I couldn't think of anything, refrigerator, guess what? Price goes up. Competition is also higher or lower depending on the industry for lots of reasons. But one being, if you have a very competitive industry, right? There are lots of advertisers going after the same types of people. Competition is also higher or lower depending on the season. Guess what? Competition is the highest right about now. This final 2 months of the year. And if you're complaining about costs being too high, there's a reason for that. It's pretty expensive this time of year because a lot of brands out there, they completely ignore Facebook ads until we get to the final couple months of the season. And we're like, oh crap, we've got to hit quota. Let me go find an advertiser and spend $100,000 on ads. So how should we approach competition? Always monitor your CPM. So that's your cost per 1,000 impressions. It tends to be, now CPMs is influenced by a lot of factors, but it is a good indicator of competition as well, especially if you're used to a certain CPM. If all of a sudden if you have one particular campaign that's running for a long period of time, and all of a sudden it's the costs are starting to go up, that could be due to competition. Or if you're running an ad to a small audience of people and it's a really high CPM, that's often due to competition. So with the high CPM costs, it's going to make profitability less likely. And yeah, the competition is typically going to be highest with the small audiences. And the reason for that, if you have this small audience you're going after, you're not giving Facebook a lot of options, right? It's like you've got to target somebody within this audience. And if you have a decent budget, which we'll talk about that in a minute, you're really backing Facebook into a corner. So what I mean by that then is that, like, if you have a big audience, Facebook can find some cheaper people to reach who are just as likely to act as somebody who might be more expensive to reach. All that said, experiment with the broad audiences and see how those work for you. Also consider lowering your budget or even pausing your campaigns during the highest competition periods where it's like, this will blow over. I mean, again, if you've got certain campaigns, you're like, man, this just isn't profitable right now, consider pausing them until we get to January and things start to slow down. All right, number 11, bidding. So how does bidding impact the performance of your ads? This is a pretty complex topic. We're not going to go too in-depth on this. I'll have a link to some of the more details in this within the replay notes. But know that Facebook offers several manual bidding options. Things like cost cap, which is the goal there would be to get more volume at an average cost per action. You have bid cap, where the goal would be controlling your bids. And you're basically telling Facebook, never bid more than this to get this certain action. Then target costs. This is where your costs will stay more consistent with an average cost per action if, say, you decide to scale and start spending more. Know, though, if you use the manual bidding option and your bid is too low, you just might not get any distribution at all. Like, why aren't my ads running? That might be why. Also, if you bid low, you may reach people. The people you reach might actually be, but there might be a reason why they're cheaper to reach. There might be lower quality reach. And there might be a reason why those that there's high competition for who cost more in the first place. Also keep in mind, if you bid too high, you may spend too much. So these are all things to consider. This is what, in general, and we'll talk about this in a moment, but by default, you would just leave it like this, where you wouldn't enter in average cost per purchase. You wouldn't select cost cap, big cap, target cost. But Facebook says set a cost control if you have a specific cost goal. If you don't set one, Facebook's ad system will focus on spending the entire budget and getting the most results, which is a good thing. But by setting a cost control, you're telling Facebook which results to spend budget on. So yeah, auto bid, you would just leave it like this. Again, it's optional. You don't have to manually bid, but you can use cost cap to get the most volume. Set it at, whatever, at the average cost per purchase. Don't skimp on that and be cute and be like, oh, a penny, because then it's just not going to run. But Facebook's going to aim to get the most purchases, and for the average cost to be no more than $10 if you set it at $10. Then with big cap, Facebook's going to aim to get the most purchases without bidding more than $10 in any auction. It's best for controlling the bids in the auction. And we talked about this a little bit already. All right. And this, again, target cost is more to keep it consistent if you're going to scale. If you're like, okay, this is working pretty well, I'm going to raise my budget by $50, it should keep it pretty consistent. Now, here's the thing about manual bidding to keep in mind. Facebook systems are really, really smart. And by using manual bidding, it's basically saying, I can do better than what Facebook's doing for me. So manual bidding suggests that we can do better. If you're a beginner, if you're an intermediate, I'm like, look, just leave it on auto. I mean, you can experiment with the manual bidding, but don't get too cute with this stuff. And it's always okay to use the manual bidding for testing purposes, but if you get into the habit of always using manual bidding because you think you're supposed to, and your ads aren't working, you might forget that, oh, wait, maybe I didn't need to do that. Only set manual bids, once again, if you have a very specific goal, really based on something you spotted within your results that you want to avoid. And we're not going to go through this, but there's a grid that Facebook puts out that goes through each of the bid strategies, excuse me, when to use it, the benefits of it, and some considerations. So I think that grid helps quite a bit in figuring that out. All right, so number 12, the budget. So when you set up your budget in Ads Manager, you're going to have the option of daily, lifetime budget, and that's basically going to determine how much Facebook's going to spend on your, in most cases, ad set. So how does this impact your performance? So the amount you spend is going to impact volume. So the volume of people you reach, the volume of people who act, the sample size that's created, so the actual number of conversions and clicks and all that kind of stuff, which ultimately then impacts optimization. So once Facebook gets out of the learning phase, it helps them properly optimize, and it's going to lead to better results. So budget is important. It doesn't mean I'm telling you have to spend a certain amount on all campaigns, because not all campaigns are the same. You can spend less to get volume on certain campaigns, like it could be a video view or driving traffic or whatever. But if you were trying to sell an expensive product, volume is going to be tougher. It's going to be more expensive to do. The lowest budgets are just less likely to get the positive results because of this, because you're not going to get that volume to be able to properly optimize. That's what I just said, right? Facebook needs volume to properly optimize. And the issue is, and I'm seeing this more and more, I feel like this is even more the truth today than it was 6 months ago, that learning phase. So the first few days, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, at first few days, your results might not be very good because Facebook's still learning and they're still trying to optimize. And what I keep finding is once Facebook exits that learning phase, your results are optimal. But if you can't get enough volume to allow Facebook to learn and get you out of that learning phase, you're just going to be wasting money. And your budget can also be too high if you're using a small audience. So look, small audiences have a purpose. But if you've got an audience of 1,000 people and you're trying to spend $100 a day, it's going to go crazy. CPM is going to skyrocket. Frequency is going to skyrocket. you're going to waste money. If you use an aggressive budget for a really small audience, it could mean you're going to end up reaching people less likely to act. What I mean by that? So you got an audience of, say, 1,000 people. Facebook likes to optimize to show it to like 20% or so of people. But if you got a high budget, Facebook's going to feel forced to reach even more of those people that maybe are less likely to act. You're also going to look to end up increasing their frequency to wasteful levels. You're going to end up increasing the CPM as a result too, which is the cost to reach your audience, which is going to be more waste. So how should we approach budget to find the most success? Consider the audience size and the impact of that audience when setting your budget. So what I mean by that, I don't remember if I get to it here. When you have a large audience, it doesn't mean you're going to spend the most on that audience, because if it's not generating results, you don't necessarily want to spend a ton on it, right? So consider both the balance of size and impact when setting your budget. But definitely, you're not going to want to set a high budget for the smaller audiences. You want to reserve the highest budget for a high-performing, larger audience. You have more budget flexibility as a result with the larger audience. You could spend a smaller amount, you could spend a lot. Basically, you can't overspend in most cases. Don't commit to a large budget for a large audience. Doesn't mean you should always use a large budget for those audiences. Also consider the sample size needed to get results when you're setting your budget. So if you're trying to drive traffic to your website and you know it costs you 20 cents per landing page view, then you could spend $20 a day to get really good sample size, right? But if you're trying to sell a product that costs $100, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but know that the sample size you're going to generate is highly dependent on your budget. Hey, there we go. Selling a $100 product. So if we assume $50 in ad spend to get a sale, and Facebook needs about 25 to 50 in a week to optimize, you're never going to reach that if you're only spending $10 per day. Okay? So those are the things we got to think about. So once again, $10 per day can work just fine for certain types of objectives, but not if you're trying to sell a $100 product, as an example. Number 13, frequency. And this is very closely related to budget as well. So if you customize columns, you can get a sense of what your frequency is, and you can add a column for that. So basically this means how many times I've reached people on average within that audience. So frequency is how often you reach someone with an ad, or the average person in that audience with an ad. Just know that people won't always act the first time that they see an ad. So what that means is you don't necessarily want to show everybody the ad once. So saying 2 is a bad frequency, it's not true. So some frequency is good. There comes a point, though, where additional views are just a waste. So like they either are or they're not going to convert or perform whatever action it is you want them to perform. So if frequency is too high, you also might start getting a lot of negative responses that you don't like. The CPM might start increasing. The waste increases. But if the frequency is too low, people may not get a chance to act. They might not even notice your ad the first time. They may have been thinking about it, forgot all about it, didn't act, and then they never see the ad again, so it doesn't happen. So how should you approach frequency? Just know there's not a single quote-unquote good frequency. We've got a couple blog posts on that on the website, too, if you just search for frequency on johnloomer.com. Know that the higher frequency can be helpful in some cases for awareness. So whereas for other types of campaigns, it may seem like a waste of money, keeping that ad in front of people over and over may be good just in the case of awareness. Also watch budgets on smaller audiences and monitor CPM over time, because that could be a sign that frequency is going up. Monitor the first time impression ratio. That's a stat that not many people know about, but you can find that within your delivery insights, which not enough people use. So first time impression ratio, basically that means what percentage of your audience is seeing this ad for the first time. And it's not so much that there's a good or a bad first time impression ratio, but obviously the smaller that number gets, the more like, okay, well, everyone's seen this now. And it's starting to get stale, right? That takes us to number 14, optimization. So optimization, you're going to see that set on the ad set side under budget and schedule. And you're basically telling Facebook what action you want to optimize for. So how does this impact your performance? Facebook optimizes to show your ad to people who are likely to act. Understand they've got a ton of data. People have been using Facebook for 5, 10, even 15 years. They've got so much information to have a good feeling about who is most likely to perform the action you want them to perform. And the action is the action that you want a particular user to take. So some examples, you want them to perform a link click, a conversion, a landing page view, impressions. Understand, though, that Facebook will not reach everyone in the audience. This is where a lot of people misunderstand. Like, oh, I got this audience of 50,000 people, and I keep spending and spending and spending and spending, and they won't go beyond this small number. Like, why is that? What you optimize for is going to impact your results. So if you optimize for a certain action, Facebook's going to find people who are most likely to perform that action. And ultimately, know that the options that you have for optimization will be determined by what campaign objective you choose in the first place. So how should we approach this? Optimize for the goal action that you want to achieve. So what's the purpose of this campaign? What is it that the one thing, and I know a lot of times you have multiple objectives, sort of, but keep it separated. If nothing else, what's the one thing I want to make sure it happens in this campaign? So sometimes, though, you may want to optimize for something else. So even if your ultimate goal is a conversion, maybe you're going to optimize for something else. And the reason for that might be you just can't get the volume to properly optimize for conversion. Like, you don't have the amount of money to budget to get Facebook the sample size to properly optimize for, like I say, $100 product that you're selling. Maybe you don't even have a pixel installed in the first place, so you can't optimize for conversion even if you wanted to. So you might want to instead optimize for something like landing page views or engagement. The other thing is, if you have a very small, very hot audience, meaning people, maybe they bought from you before, they're the people who were just at this particular page, landing page, product page, added to cart, whatever. In that case, you may not want Facebook to optimize. You may want to reach everyone in that audience, because if Facebook optimizes, they're saying, oh, we only want to reach this percentage. So in that case, I recommend you using the reach objective to optimize for reach. And in that case, Facebook's going to try to reach everybody within that audience, or as many people as they can. Number 15, product. The actual product itself is going to impact your results as well. What do we mean by that? So you could have the greatest ad in the world. We talked about this a little bit related to targeting. Well, you have the perfect ad that had the perfect targeting, everything's right, the website works great, it's got a good industry, but you have a product that is just trash. The perfect ad can't fix that. What if, it just is the case that no one wants your product? Facebook can't force people to buy it, right? Too many advertisers look at this as if people are robots. And Facebook will automatically find those robots who are ready to buy your stuff. And if it doesn't work, it's Facebook's fault. Maybe your product sucks. What if the product maybe is just overpriced? Maybe that's the reason. And the problem is, a lot of times, maybe this is outside of your control. Maybe you've got a client, maybe you're working for a higher up, and you can't force people to buy this thing. That can be a challenge. So how do you approach product? Maybe do some research. Is your product's price in line with the market? And if it's not, maybe see if you can do something about that. Get a sale going on or something. Also, create ads that highlight the product benefits. So even if it is overpriced, or if people just don't realize how good this thing is, highlight why it's great. Maybe testimonials. Also consider, especially if this is a new product that people haven't bought yet, they need to understand more about, consider things like videos or instant experience that tell a fuller story about why this thing is great. Also, look, if no one's buying it, consider using ads for awareness and list building only. Okay? If it's just too expensive to try to get the sale, focus on awareness and list building only. Because if the ads are ineffective for sales, you can focus on that portion with your email. So you can send emails to people trying to get them to buy. Also ask yourself, is there evidence that people are buying this product at all? So if we're not running ads, are people coming to the website and buying? Because if they're not, ads won't fix that. Once again, you got to remember, and this might be something to remind clients who have really unreasonable expectations, Facebook ads aren't magical. They're not going to force people to buy. There's not this mystical reservoir of people and robots that Facebook's going to go to the advertisers they like to force them to buy stuff. Oop. All right, so number 16 of the reasons and the factors that impact your ad performance is industry. So this is just the nature of the beast, and something we all need to appreciate is some industries are just incredibly competitive. Some industries are also just incredibly boring. Some industries have legal challenges for ads, right? So you have to watch what you say. That if you're a law firm, for example, you might be restricted on the types of things that you're willing to say in an ad. But some industries also might have policy challenges for ads. So, for example, if it's weapons or supplements or medicine or drugs, tobacco, all the things, weight loss, all these things that may violate Facebook terms, that could be an issue. It may be difficult to create an ad that gets results and follows Facebook guidelines as a result. And so I'm not talking about the people who are just always looking to get around Facebook rules. I'm just saying you're in a tough industry. On the flip side, you could have an industry that's really, really easy, right? That people are very passionate about and that you're going to get very low cost clicks and conversions. So how do we approach industry? Ask yourself, is this something it's my problem or is it an industry problem? So have others in your industry made it work? And if so, what are they doing? Is it possible your marketing focus should be elsewhere? So maybe we just need to spend less on Facebook ads and do something else because of all the restrictions we have with our industry. At the end of the day, get creative. Like, oh, so what? It's a boring industry. So what? We have all these challenges. Well, what else can you do that no one's done before? Do things in different ways that no one's done. Think about how you can make your ads interesting and engaging and entertaining and helpful and inspiring. So even though everything about the industry says you can't do it, think about ways that you can. All right, number 17, brand recognition. So how does brand recognition impact the success of your ads? Established brands, let's face it, they have a built-in advantage, and it could be painful to see these established brands within your industry who aren't very good at what they do, having all kinds of success with their ads. And they've just got a built-in advantage. Brand recognition can overpower inferior marketing. But poor brand recognition can make profitable ads difficult on the flip side. Like you could do everything right, but I don't know who you are. I don't trust you. I don't know if this product's any good. And you may have little or no control over this. This is ultimately playing the long game. And so what do we do with brand recognition? First of all, have reasonable expectations with your poor brand recognition. And if you've got a client, got to hire up, make sure they understand this too. You're not going to be able to succeed or not necessarily have the expectation you're going to succeed at the same level as a company with the high brand recognition. And this is a long-term strategy. This is something where you guys start throwing the building blocks out there to build that up. Create some campaigns that maybe don't have conversion goals, where you want to get attention and for people to remember who you are. So consider things like awareness and reach and engagement and clicks, where they can have more long-term benefits for you. Also consider videos where you're telling your story and you try to tell what you're all about. End of the day, think differently. Try to set yourself apart from everybody else, even if no one knows who you are. Number 18, we're almost there. We're getting there, sample size. So how does sample size impact our success? Boy, I see this a lot. Before we decide whether something was successful or not, sample size is really, really important. So if let's say you've got a day worth of results, and you're like, man, this is really expensive. This is not working. That doesn't mean anything. Like you probably haven't gotten through the learning phase. The results can change really, really quickly. Facebook can't properly optimize based on a small sample size. So just be really careful about acting too soon on a small sample size. So how should we approach this? Don't make decisions until the learning phase exit. Now, there's some exceptions to that. If you've spent a reasonable amount of money without getting any actions whatsoever, then it might be time to get out. But also consider increasing your budget to get an adequate sample size. And consider aggregating your ad sets or budget to increase that sample size. So you've got multiple ad sets or multiple campaigns that really have a similar objective. Throw them into one so you can use that budget towards one purpose. Learning phase, it's a big deal. So as long as you've got in the ad set under delivery, Facebook saying learning, you really shouldn't act. Now, that assumes that you're going to be able to get out of that learning phase and Facebook's generating enough volume to get out of it. But don't act before Facebook gets out of that learning phase if you can avoid it. Number 19, we got two more. Purchase intent. So how does purchase intent impact the success of your ads? This is a really big one for some brands, some industries. So if you're not familiar with what this means, it's evidence that someone wants to buy something from you, right? So it could be they performed a search, whether it be on your website or a Google search, whatever, looking for the solution that you can provide. They've maybe visited a product page on your website. They subscribe to something that's further up the funnel, like this webinar, on your website. The problem is that success for some campaigns requires purchase intent. So in some cases, products or services, they're only going to be required or desired when they're needed. So for example, plumber, running ads for a plumber. You got to find people who need a plumber. How are you going to do that? Why do I care about seeing an ad for a plumber in my news feed if my pipes are fine? I'm going to completely ignore that. But as soon as I need a plumber, I'm gonna be interested. But how can you reach me once I have that purchase intent? So how do we approach this? First of all, your remarketing from your website visits should be the first step. So you want to reach those who recently went to your website because that shows some interest. Even if that traffic is low, use that. But it's going to be difficult with Facebook ads if you're not targeting purchase based on purchase intent for certain industries, okay? Facebook doesn't have true search ads, which is a disadvantage as well. So otherwise you could reach people who are searching for a plumber, for example. What you can do, though, is you can run Google ads based on search terms. Could be local, who are looking for your solution. They're sending them to your website. They may or may not convert, but now you have that traffic based on purchase intent. You've spent that money to raise that purchase intent audience. you can remarket them then with Facebook ads. So you can run those concurrently. So you can use Facebook ads to remarket the traffic driven by Google. It's a strategy that's not used often enough. And number 20, I'm losing my voice. The final item, the final factor that impacts performance of your ads is placements. So you're probably familiar with what this looks like when you're setting up your ad set. Placements, you got automatic placements, what Facebook recommends, or they'll just show it to all the placements or as many as they want. They're going to optimize to show it to ones that are working better and maybe not show it to certain placements at all. Or you can edit placements and select where you want it to appear. So how does this impact your performance? So placements are where your ads reach people. So that means desktop, mobile news feed, right-hand column, Instagram feed, stories, Messenger, etc., 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 etc. Now, not all placements are equal. Some placements cost much, much more than others to reach them. So, for example, the news feed, I think mobile news feed these days might be more expensive than desktop. I think it's been flip-flopping, but those tend to be most expensive. But also some placements are simply more effective than others. So it may cost more to reach people in the newsfeed, but maybe it's most effective there, so it works. So how do we approach placements? First of all, don't assume that some placements work and don't work, right? So keep an open mind is what I'm saying. Right-hand column, for example, can be effective because it's cheap to reach people in the right-hand column. And as a result, you don't need a high conversion rate. So don't worry about what the conversion rate is. Worry about what the cost is to get the action you're looking for. Also, analyze your results. So that breakdown, we can break down by placement. Facebook will show you what the cost is for each placement. Also, observe how Facebook distributes your budget. Because if they're dedicating a low amount of spend to low performing placements, that's generally okay, right? Let Facebook roll with that. But the problem we got to watch for is if they're dedicating a high amount of spend on low performing placements, and that just shouldn't happen. That's when we got to start taking control ourselves. Also, be very wary of surface level success. So clicks. Facebook's looking for a specific action. If you're optimizing for link clicks or landing page views, they get you that, but they're low quality in some cases. That could be influenced more by placement. So generally, I would say automatic placements are okay. Also think about the format you're using, what you're trying to accomplish, if it really makes sense using that in certain placements. But unless you see issues, then start editing by placement. I've also seen the audience network can be problematic. We'll talk about that in a minute. So we talked about breakdown by placement. This is within your ads manager. If you go to breakdown, you select placement, Facebook will create individual rows for each placement within your ad set and tell you how each one performed. And here's something interesting. So I talk about audience network potentially being problematic. I received this notification within the last couple months that Facebook was refunding me about $100, which is actually kind of a decent amount, because they detected activity on audience network that violated Facebook's policy. So it's nothing I did, but basically there were bots and whatnot, or it could have been bots, it could have been something that was app related that violated policies. Now, so there were about $100 worth of inauthentic clicks I was paying for. I have heard from others who have been refunded thousands of dollars. It's just kind of crazy. So yeah, I'm a little suspicious of that. All right, so we've got all 20. Now, again, to revisit, we talked about this a little bit before. Consider this a sliding scale. So you've got significant control over some of these factors. You have moderate control of some of them as well. You have little to no control over others. It's all going to depend upon your situation, whether you have control over all this or not. And also, just as we look at this and the way Facebook works, just assume that you're getting a grade. It could be like a 1 through 5 for each factor that's contributing to the results. When you ask the question, why didn't my ad work? It's not just one single thing. It's complicated. There are many reasons. So don't search for a single solution. Don't obsess over, though, every single factor here. So there's certain things you have significant control over, like the copy, usually creative, ad format, targeting, landing page, bidding, budget, frequency, optimization, placements. And look, some of you may have less control over that than others, depending on whom you're advertising for. You have moderate control over things like website traffic, Facebook pixel and events, website performance, email list, sample size, purchase intent. All that stuff significantly impacts your performance, and you may or may not have control over any of that. And of course, minimal control over competition, product, industry, brand recognition. You may have no control over any of that, and that you could be up against the 8 ball, up behind the 8 ball because of these things, and you can't control it. So what general approach should we be taking? General fixes. I mean, we've talked a little bit about it for each one, right? But when we step back and think about what our basic strategy should be, first of all, understand that every situation is different. Okay, don't try to use one basic approach to everything you do. Appreciate that there are many different factors that contribute to your success, but don't obsess over every factor. Accept that some of this stuff is outside of your control, and it's okay. So a big part of this is testing. I get the question all the time, like, should I do this? Should I use manual bidding? Should I target a small audience? Like, try it. Try it for yourself. See if it works. Test it. Know that the same approach won't work every single time. If something will work, just go ahead, test it, figure it out for yourself. Don't worry about it. Don't ask other people if you need to do something. Go ahead, try it out. What works for one person won't work for everybody. You can use Facebook's built-in split testing feature to do this, so it's a true A/B split test. You can also use dynamic creative, which was brought up by one person, or that multiple text options that I talked about as well. That's something I'm testing out right now. Not sure why it's going backwards there. All right. But you also got to avoid watering down your results with too many tests. So we talked before about volume and sample size. Well, we've got a whole bunch of tests going on at once, trying to isolate what works and what doesn't. You're separating your budget between things. So try to focus on one thing at a time. So test one item at a time, one factor, not everything at once. Don't freak out. Experiment often, though. Try something new. And then when it comes to acting on results and what you see, remember, you got to allow Facebook to exit the learning phase. Optimization isn't complete until that happens. So you might be getting some bad results early that may improve. Don't act too quickly on bad results. And it's also, like, people ask me, okay, so what? I got to wait 3 days, 5 days, 7 days? It's not so much about days and time as it is about volume and giving Facebook sample size. So in terms of finding success, appreciate the challenges that are in front of you. So you may work for a client or a company that is just in a really bad industry, not good brand recognition, on and on, like all these obstacles in your way, bad website, whatever. Just appreciate that those challenges exist. Explain that those challenges exist to your clients or higher ups so that you can set proper expectations. Some of those factors may be outside of your control. Avoid comparing your situation to others that they may be in a better situation. And also find what works for you. Okay? Don't always worry about the perfect approach, perfect strategy. Experiment, find what works for you. Find what success means for your situation. So other people might be getting $1 per lead or $10 per sale or whatever. That may not be reasonable for you. Figure out what success means for you. And set reasonable expectations for yourself and your clients so you don't drive yourself crazy. All right, so before I get to your questions, really quick. You're the only ones that have heard about this besides my team. Nobody else, okay, is this upcoming training called Beyond the Boost. And if you go to johnloomer.com/BTB, you can learn more about it. But basically, you'll get more than 25 tutorial videos to move you beyond the boost button, improve your confidence, capabilities, performance as a Facebook advertiser. So unlike a lot of my trainings, this one's going to be static with a whole bunch of modules, video modules, and I'll probably have more as well, walking you through all of this stuff. So boosting versus ads manager, campaigns, ad sets, ads, campaign budget optimization, split testing, on and on and on. This is just scratching the surface of the various topics we're going to be covering there. And so it's nice. Now, really, my trainings I almost always sell for $97 or $147. I've even sold for more. This one, I'm targeting a very specific audience of people who are more in that beginner to intermediate stage who maybe don't have the budget. So I'm going to sell for $49, but it's not available yet. And I'm making it available to prepay to you only right now. You're not even able to find this on the site at $19. So if you go to johnloomer.com/BTB, you can join me and sign up. So if you have any questions, you can certainly ask them here. You drop us an email at info@johnloomer.com. Hey, it's question time. Oh, goodness. All right, so let me get to your questions. Again, I'll answer as many as I can. Stephanie asked, how do you know when learning phase is complete? Within that column about delivery, it'll say active and it won't say learning. So it'll just stop saying learning. And if you hover over, it'll show you the progress there too. Oh, geez. Stacy said sign up button isn't working for me. Just refreshes the page. Hold on, let me see. You know what? I think Tracy may have mentioned that too, and I didn't know what she was talking about. Aha. We are going to update that. I completely missed what she was talking about. I'll update that later when I email you. So, boy, my apologies for not having that ready for you. Let me see here. Should I leave ads on all the time, even at night? You know, I would. Look, you can pause them, or you can have Facebook run day parting. In general, it's like, look, if my ideal audience is online at 2 a.m, assuming they're sober, I want to reach them, and it might actually be cheaper to reach them at that time. So I tend to do that. Yeah. I got here through a Facebook ad. Good job, awesome. Oh yeah, let me go back and look at that poll. I don't know if see, I had a poll. This is what happened. I had a poll, and I think a lot of you answered it too, regarding how many people found out about this. But of course, Webinar Jam was not very helpful for me today. Oh man. So Sabrina says, I am the president of a nonprofit with no website. We use Meetup. Any suggestions? Yeah. So I know. Look, I used to work for a nonprofit at one time. Worked for American Cancer Society. Long story short, our oldest son's a cancer survivor, and I understand those delicate situations. It's you can be restricted in terms of what you have available to you. So when you can do fundraisers on Facebook, if you're driving to Meetup, you can also create landing pages, with certain services, third-party services, things like that. You can use lead ads for generating leads. You can create events through Facebook. But you could still do a lot of remarketing based on engagement with your stuff, based on watching videos and that kind of thing. Michelle asked, I was unaware you could create an audience based on email addresses. Can you upload a CSV or Excel file of those emails? Yeah, that would be right. So within Ads Manager, so facebook.com/ads manager, then you find audiences in the top menu. One of the things you can do is upload a CSV file and making sure that you have rights to all those email addresses. Where do you see results per placement? So if you go within Ads Manager, there's a drop down at the right side for breakdown. Click on breakdown, and it would be by placement. I think it's under delivery. It's by placement, and then you could do that. Jackie said, I've had several ads that seem stagnant, very limited reach. Therefore, they seem like they get stuck in the learning phase. These ads are for a given campaign and are timely. In a case like this, do you think the key problem is budget? Once again, it could be many things. It could be if your budget is really, really low and it's not being shown to people. If the question is, are you reaching the budget? If you're reaching the budget and it's stagnant and you're getting limited reach, then yeah, budget seems to be an issue, right? But I would think about, okay, what is the cost per the action that Facebook's trying to optimize for, and how much is being spent? So how are you spending enough then to get that within, say, 3, 4, 5 days? Kat says, what would you consider as a substantial enough sample size to make any decisions in the learning phase? Well, so Facebook exits the learning phase once it used to be a firm number, but it isn't anymore. But somewhere around 25 to 50 of the actions they're optimizing for. And they will then exit the learning phase. So I would say it kind of depends on what it is you're optimizing. Like if you're optimizing for a sale, you may actually, it might take a little bit longer. First of all, you're optimizing for like a link click or video views. They may get a learning phase quickly, but you may want to be careful not to act too fast, like based on those results. So in general, it takes 25 to 50 in terms of sample size, and then I would say let it run for a day in general while it is out of learning phase. Kathy asks, how do you know if campaign has enough spend or reach or scale to be optimized? Or how do you know if it is too small and never leaving test mode? I guess you mean leaving the learning phase. So first of all, you might want to go back on any prior history. So what does it cost you to get a certain action? And once again, we want to aim for that 25 to 50 in sample size over a 7-day period, at most 7-day period. So how much is it going to cost then? If you say, I know it costs me $3 per lead, and if I want to get, let's say 50, so it costs $150, say $150, we'll say we want to get that in 3 days, so that's $50 a day. Kind of a shorthand. What do you think of using a small audience with detailed interest expansion? Claire asks, I haven't used that. I've used interest expansion, and it wasn't for a small audience. And I've actually had good results, and I'm using it right now for the purpose of targeting a cold audience, obviously, to drive traffic. And it's actually worked really well. And the reason for that is because of those larger audiences, the CPM is lower, so the cost to reach them is lower. So even if the conversion rate's not great, your cost per action is good. I would say, like everything else, Claire, experiment with it. I haven't used it for a small audience, but it's worth a try. Let me see here. As far as the recording goes, Natalia, yep, afterwards I'll send you a link within a few hours to a page that includes the replay notes. So embedded video, downloadable audio, embedded slides, relevant links, all kinds of good stuff. Jana says Facebook Ad Sports said a catalog needs to be built in Facebook Business Manager to run dynamic ads, not pulled from website. I think that's kind of a confusion of communication there. Your website's going to house the products. You're going to create a product feed with a product catalog. It's going to include columns of those products and links to those products, and the product description and price and image and just all that kind of stuff. And you have to have the pixel on your website for all that to work. Jamie asked, do the pixels installed on a website automatically build a custom audience, or do you have to create custom audience first? Well, you have to have the pixel installed on your audience first, and then you have to create the audience. But that said, if you create an audience, it will go back in time. So let's say you've had the pixel on your site for the last year. You want to create an audience of everyone who's visited your site during the last 30 days. It will go back in time to do that for you. Let me see here. Tom asked, if I have 2 Facebook pages, do I have 2 pixels or 1? It's less about Facebook pages and more about websites. So if you've got 2 different websites, especially if they're 2 different businesses, I would use 2 different pixels. But you could have 2 Facebook pages for the same business. How often should you target your warm or hot audience? I mean, like everything else, I think this is something that should be an ongoing process, right? So I always run ads that are promoting traffic, that are really driving traffic, promoting blog posts. They're going to a colder audience. I'm usually, after this webinar, and I'll stop it for a while, usually running an ad to target a warmer audience to build my email list. And then usually running an ad to the smallest of audiences, warm, hot audiences, to sell. So that's kind of an ongoing basis. Yeah, Tracy said the sign up link at the landing page isn't working. Correct. I'm going to have to fix that, I think, after we're done here, and I'll make sure to email everybody and let them know. All right, let me go back to the top. Tasha said, I only have the pixel on a few pages of my website. Will only pull the people who visited those pages. Correct. Now, if you can, put it in the template of your site so it's on every page of the site. You can then create audiences based on specific pages they visited. Jennifer said, when you spoke about optimization, did you say Facebook tries to reach only a certain percentage of your entire targeted audience? Why? Well, let's think about it. You tell Facebook, I want you to reach people who are female, over the age of 40, who live in California, to buy my product. And obviously, you might have some other interests or whatever. And you want them to buy, right? So Facebook has all this information, says these particular people are most likely to buy. If you just say, don't optimize Facebook, because otherwise they're not optimizing. If you want Facebook to reach everybody in that audience, then Facebook's not going to optimize. They're just going to try to show it to everyone. But the reality is you're going to find there's a lot of waste in there. And when Facebook optimizes, there's less waste. Jeremy says, I'm about to run a reach campaign for 1,500 people with 15 different ads, ever shown once a day. Every new ad will run every 2 to 3 days. Jeremy, that sounds like an evergreen campaign. If you go to my website, I've written about this a bunch of times. Just search for evergreen campaign. It's a strategy I love to do. So yeah, I've done it many, many times. Claire asked, where the permissions around lookalike audiences? Does the consumer need to have given specific permission to be used, or if they're registered interest with the company? So you create a lookalike audience off of one of your assets, right? So a page that you're an admin of, it could be an app that you're an admin of, could be a custom audience that you generated. Custom audience meaning your email list or Facebook pixel traffic, or so yeah, these are all things that are your assets that you're creating a lookalike audience off of. What is a minimum audience size for a local business? You know, I wouldn't say that there's a minimum audience size. It's just a matter of making an impact with whatever that audience size is. I've reached really small audiences before. Juan Diego asks, what do you think about WhatsApp and its growing similarity to a social network? I don't have a lot of knowledge about WhatsApp, to be honest with you. Now, I know that WhatsApp is included now in your destinations. If you're in a country that WhatsApp is really popular, you can send people into a WhatsApp conversation as a destination for your ad, which could be useful if that's where your audience communicates. Sheila, yeah. Any advice for trying to help a potential client get their ad account reinstated? Do I start a new account for them and use a new payment method via my business manager? Their ad account was deactivated by Facebook. Well, this is the thing you got to remember. If you're running ads for others, you should set up your own business manager, and they should have a business manager now, and then connect the two. The question is, first of all, see whatever you can do to get them reinstated. If you can't, I don't really like going around that and setting up a new ad account, but sometimes that's what you got to do. Now, I would have them set it up because you don't want that to impact you. I do not see targeting geographically in my settings. That may be due to special category, if you're using special category settings. Elena, how to reach with a few ads to the same audience and not compete with yourself? That's pretty tricky. That's pretty tricky. I mean, one way is using lots of exclusions, but it's really hard to reach them with multiple audiences without doing something. I think it was Jeremy was talking about, like that evergreen campaign concept. That's the closest I can get to that. Yeah. Kimberly asked, do you interact with comments, etc. on ads? Is it part of your strategy? I do. It depends on the comments. But yeah, I do my best to check the comments and see, first of all, are they helpful? Are they spam? Are they ridiculous? Are they looking for more information about the product that I can answer for them? Yeah, I definitely make that part of my routine. You're welcome, Sabrina. Good question. Daniela, are you using the campaign budget optimization? What kinds of changes in the setup it gives? I am. Now, I was not impressed with campaign budget optimization originally. Anyone who's not familiar with it, historically, or at least over the last few years, we've been setting our budget at the ad set level. Now, a campaign budget optimization, so you could have, let's say, 3 ad sets within a campaign and set a different ad set, or different budget for each ad set. With campaign budget optimization, you set the budget at the campaign level, say $100, you got 3 ad set. Facebook's going to then distribute that budget optimally, they say, which should, they say, result in more conversions because they can then respond quickly to what is generating more conversions and what is not. I've actually seen this to be pretty effective lately. I don't use the minimums and maximums by ad set. I've tended to just trust Facebook with it, and sometimes they distribute in ways that I don't expect, and I wouldn't have done it if I did it manually, and it works. So I've been pretty happy with it. Halloumi asked, you said you got around 2,000 signups for this, so I'm curious what your budget was, if you don't mind sharing. I don't recall. And that's not me dancing around the image or dancing around the question. I'll give you all the information I can on this one. So first of all, understand that I promoted it organically. So if you go to my Facebook page, you can see it there too. I did send out some emails to my list about this too. So it didn't just come from Facebook ads. My average cost per registration was in the $1.30-ish range. Could be $1.50. But that's where I was. So how much of that was, I mean, I could bring it up separately. Hold on. I'm gonna be as transparent as I can be on this one. So give me a moment. Of course, this campaign just completed, so it's gonna be harder to find. 1 second. Okay, so it looks like I spent, where are my results? Okay, so I spent about, let's see here. Let me look at this. So, because I also ran lead ads. Yep, so it was about $1,600 at a total of $1.78 per conversion. So hopefully that helps you. And that actually optimized really well, by the way. And at the end, it was like today, it was like $1.20. All right. Yeah, Owen asked about CCPA, California Consumer Privacy Act. I'm not up to date on that yet. I know we've got all kinds of things that we need to be aware of, though, as advertisers, but I'm not knowledgeable enough about that at this point. What's one of the best converting campaign funnels you've ever used? Can you give us an example? Yeah, I mean, go back and look up the Evergreen campaign strategy. So basically, it's where I'll have a trigger action. It would be someone registered for something. And then for the first few days, they get one ad. Next few days, they get another ad. Next few days, they get another ad. Next few days, they get another. So this is all basically like a drip campaign, but through Facebook. I had a lot of success with that. Yep, there will be a recording. I'll send that out to you when we're done here, within about a couple hours. Okay, I think we're good. I really appreciate, I appreciate your patience here, because it took a lot of it. Anyone who's used Webinar Jam, definitely reach out and let me know if this is normal, what we experienced, because that was frustrating. Was not happy about it. And this is the first time I've ever hosted a webinar on Webinar Jam, so I'm a little scared to do it again. I think once we got beyond those early issues, everything seemed to work great. But give me a shout, please. If you have any questions at all about anything I can do for you, training, the upcoming training I talked about, drop us a line. I'm going to send you an email here in a little bit, and you can respond to it. Otherwise, send me a message at info@johnlimmer.com. But overall, I just really, really appreciate you taking these 2 hours to spend with me. I hope you got a lot out of it and that it was beneficial to you. Keep in touch. Until next time, do awesome things. I'm out.